your microphones when you're not speaking to ensure there is no unnecessary background noise and to help with the audio and visual quality of the broadcast. I think Gareth has made the point that there's no need to switch off the cameras. The Council standing orders and code of conduct will apply at all times during this virtual meeting in the same way as ordinary meetings, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. Can I also remind members to ensure that they use the raise hand facility and use that facility to indicate to me when they wish to speak on a particular item. Please do not speak until I invite you to do so, and remember to unmute your microphone and to switch your camera on. A recorded version of this remote meeting will be uploaded onto the Council website for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translations of the proceedings can be provided upon request. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the Council. With that, I can start the meeting formally. Welcome, Councillor Debbie Wilcox, to our first meeting. Welcome. Are there any apologies for absence, Pamela?
Councillor Routley has sent apologies, Chair.
And I'm looking, nobody else has tried to join. Any declarations of interest?
Yep.
Councillor Wilcox?
Chair, can I just check with the monitoring officer, please, if I need to note my interest in the House of Lords?
No, that's on your normal declaration form. Unless the House of Lords is likely to come up in this meeting, then there's no need for you to declare that. That's fine.
I'm just very careful these days, Gareth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Can we move to the minutes of the last meeting? And can we take the recorded words as taken and pick up the action points? So the meeting was held long enough away now, isn't it? So that it was last January, wasn't it?
It was.
Has anybody got anything on the minutes then on page 3? On page 4, Gareth, there's this reference to the ethical standards and how leaders are going to monitor things. Do we need to take anything up on that, Gareth?
No, that was just to make you aware of the provisions in the Local Government and Elections Bill. I mean, what I can say is, of course, that has now been enacted. Right. So all the provisions in that bill have now been enacted and will be brought into force, most of them in time for the next local elections in May 2022. So at that point in time, the obligation on group leaders to be responsible for ethical standards within their group will apply. Now we're waiting for further guidance from Welsh Government in terms of how that will work in practice. But the provisions in the draft bill as it was then that we reported back in January have since been enacted. So all those provisions there insofar as they relate to Standards Committee will become law before the next elections in May 2022.
Okay. Councillor Wilcox, you've got the hand up. Is that something you wanted to raise?
Apologies, Chair. I will put my hand down. Thank you.
Okay. My next item, matters arising, is on page 5. And there was item 7, I think it was, if there's nothing before that. And that was we'd write a courtesy letter. Now, I can't remember whether we did that. We'd write a courtesy letter to the leaders of the respective groups because we met with them before we conducted the survey, Gareth, didn't we?
That was just a formal acknowledgement of their support and the fact that we concluded the review. I think even though the numbers of responses were slightly disappointing, I think there were some conclusions that we drew from that.
Yes.
And we mentioned those in your annual report that was presented to the council. So yes, that was done. We acknowledge the cooperation and thank the leaders of the groups officially for that on your behalf.
And that was done in the report as opposed to writing a letter then, was it?
Well, it was done by email. We followed it up by email shortly after that on your behalf. So we did acknowledge the cooperation of the group leaders.
Thank you very much. I don't think there's anything else. Has anybody got any queries on matters arising? No. We go to the chair's announcements.
Chair, forgive me. I did raise my hand. There was a point about declarations of interest each year, and I think there was an action on Gareth to look at the procedure for declaring. You were going to try and make it more user-friendly. Is that covered within the minutes?
I didn't see a reference to that, Councillor.
Oh, okay.
I mean, these were back in last January, weren't
Yes,
they?
I appreciate that, Chair. We discussed members' register of interests and how they hadn't always been carried out each year, and Gareth was going to look at how he could make the process a little bit easier, or the prompting of the process, I think.
Can you find that in the draft minutes?
It's not in the. I was sort of skimming the minutes. It's not in the minutes as such, but I do recall it being raised in the debate. I mean, the form for registration of interest is prescribed, so there's not much we can do about that. I think the issue was about members updating their register on a regular basis. So I think Anne Jenkins wrote round to members in the last sort of few months, reminding them of the need to update their register of interest. I think because we had an FOI request in, I seem to remember, and we signposted the requester to the published registers. So I think a reminder was sent round to all councillors in the last sort of few months about the need to make sure that their register of interest was up to date. So I think indirectly we probably covered that off anyway.
Yeah. You were talking about a fresh register having to be completed each year when we discussed it last year, but the suggestion you've got is absolutely fine.
Yeah, I think it's not so much a fresh register, it's the fact that it has to be kept up to date. It's not a once and for all declaration, because what members tend to do is complete that within 28 days of the election, which they're required to do, but they're not then update it. So if their employment details change, or even if they moved house during that period in terms of property interests, then we just remind them of the need to update that. And there's a revision form that they can fill in just to update the original entries.
Yeah.
So I think rather than renew the register every year, it was just a question of making sure that the entries that you've registered were up to date and relevant. And if they needed updating, just to fill in an amendment form every 12 months. So I think we'll put that in train anyway. And I think because of the FOI request, members were advised, certainly in the last sort of few months, to check what they registered a few years ago and make sure that was up to date. So we have done that.
It's not so much those, if you like, standing register of interest. It's more when we change committees and we maybe change school governors, that sort of thing. So we do tend to pick up different interests then.
Changing committees isn't an issue.
Right.
If you change governing bodies, that's membership of an outside body, and therefore you would need to update your register to include details of that new governing body. So, you know, again, that's probably more of a training issue in terms of members being aware of the need to update those interests every time that their appointments to outside bodies changed. Committee membership doesn't matter.
Thank you very much, Gareth. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Phil. Good evening, Kerry. I see you top of your head. I can see you're with us.
Yes, good evening all. I'm sorry, I had a little bit of trouble with the Teams module for some reason, but we're on now, so I apologise for being late.
No worries, no worries. Thank you very much. Any other matters arising? Let me move to the chair's announcements then. There are no announcements that I wish to make, but can I just congratulate Councillor Wilcox on your honour, which was so well deserved back last year. It's back last November now, but we are, as a Standards Committee, of course, we haven't met with you present. So congratulations.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I do my best to make sure that Newport City Council and indeed South Wales in general is well represented in Hansard, and I do it on a regular basis. And I shall be leaving Newport City Council in May 2022 with a heavy heart after almost 20 years of serving the community, but I'm afraid the two roles will no longer be compatible. But I really, you know, as an early member of the Standards Committee back in 2004, I think it's, I'm delighted to be ending my term back on the Standards Committee. So thank you very much for your welcome and your good wishes. It's greatly appreciated.
Right, item 6 on the agenda then is succession planning and appointment of independent members. There's 2 of us finishing this year, isn't it? Now we're in 2021, and we just have to agree, Gareth, the piece of paper which has been well, the policy that's been put in front of us and enacted in effect. I don't know what's happening in terms of the current everything in the local authority by way of interview, and is there a special arrangements now in place during this coded sort of virus situation?
All interviews are conducted remotely via Teams. So unless there are exceptional circumstances, we don't have face-to-face interviews. Right. So if you notice, I've actually sort of amended the advertisement to actually say that in terms of the recruitment process. Yes, you're quite right, Chair. Obviously, in terms of succession planning, there are 2 independent members of Standards Committee now whose 8 years, 2 successive terms of office will be up this year now. I think your term of office ends in March. And Mrs. Britton, I think, then in October 2021. So this report just sets out the procedure that Standards Committee needs to follow to appoint 2 new independent members. Okay. Because it's quite prescriptive in terms of what we have to do by way of advertisement and recruitment. So what I'm inviting you to do as a Standards Committee really is just to agree that process. Firstly, note the fact that we do need to appoint new members this year. And to agree the job requirement form and job application form that we've attached to the report. If you're happy with that, the other thing then is that we have to set up a special appointments subcommittee of at least 4 members, one of which unfortunately has to be John as the community council representative. We have to have John, 1 councillor, and at least 1 independent member. So we need at least sort of 3 or 4 people really to form an appointments panel that will interview the shortlisted candidates and then make a recommendation to council then to appoint the new members. So that's what the report is all about, but I'm happy to take any questions.
As chair, have I got to attend these interviews?
No, that's entirely up to you. And obviously, as you will be one of the departing members, you may think that it's not appropriate for you to be involved in the interviews. That's entirely a matter for you. Okay. I'm just conscious of the fact that your term of office will expire in March. So we will need to put this in train as soon as possible. Okay. But it would seem sensible then, if do you need 2 independent members or 1? That's entirely up to you. Like I said, we have to have at least 1 councillor, 1 independent member. But I'm happy to have volunteers, or if anyone wants to make any recommendations. As I say, unfortunately, the community council rep doesn't have a choice because there's only 1 of them. So unfortunately, we'll have to rely on John being part of the interviews. But like I said, at the moment, and with the restrictions in place, we will try and set up any interviews remotely via Teams. So we'll meet in the same way that we're meeting now to try and interview the shortlisted applicants.
Okay, well, let's get the advertisement out as soon as we possibly can then, because the March will be upon us soon, won't it? So that's to say, that's the first stage, and that's what we need to agree straight away and liaise with yourself about the interview process, Gareth and Pam, is it? About the people that take part in the interview procedure?
Yes, so I think 3 members have indicated they'd like to speak, so I'll defer to them before answering that question.
Okay. Phil, you've got your hand up?
Are present lay members of the committee eligible to stand as chair if they so wish? And I'd be happy to go on the appointments panel unless Councillor Wilcox wanted to.
I'm happy to defer to you, Phil. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear.
Andrew?
Sorry, Chair, in answer to Councillor Horan's point, the appointments panel, like I said, we just need that combination. We need at least 1 member for each of the categories: community councillor, councillor, and independent. We can have as many as you want on the interview panel. At the end of the day, a recommendation will go to full council anyway for approval. What you will need to do, though, post April at the next meeting, is obviously appoint a new independent chair. So that's the other issue that you will need to consider, but that's probably more for next meeting. I just flagged that up now. The other issue that I raise in the report is, I know it's a bit premature at the moment because Mrs. Britton doesn't sort of retire, as it were, until next October, but rather than repeat the appointments process, then whether it's worth interviewing for 2 candidates now. And for the second one, obviously not to take up the appointment until Mrs. Britton's term of office ends in October. So just have the 1 recruitment process, if you like, rather than repeat this process 6 months down the line. So that was the other option that I put in the paper for you to consider.
Kerry, have you got something you want to say? I see your hand up.
Yes, I'm more than willing to put myself forward to be a member of the panel. And I would agree with Gareth as well that it would be wise to do both at the same time rather than reinvent it in 6 months' time.
Would it be sensible then to take the decision on whether we interview for the 2 points when we see the response from the advertisement? If we've got a good response, i.e. a lot of people putting themselves forward, it might be the very practical and sensible thing to do. On the other hand, if there's a narrow field, then I think we would benefit from having another go at it a second time.
Yep.
Is that all right, Gareth?
Yeah, happy to do that, Chair. We can obviously leave that to the appointments panel when we've got a shortlist, as you say, if it's a strong shortlist. And after interviewing, if the appointments panel feel there are 2 strong candidates, then we could go down that route. If however, we're not happy with the standard of the shortlisting, then we can repeat the process in before October. That's fine.
Okay. Does that cover that item to your satisfaction, Gareth? Can you set up a process from that?
I think Andrew was indicated.
Yes, Andrew?
Yeah, just really to say, same as Kerry, more than happy to sit if required, and be guided by the number of candidates we get into relation to the continuing of 2 or one at a later date.
Okay. Paul?
Chair, the same for me as well. I'm quite happy to make myself available for 1 or 2 interview panels if needed. So my name's in the hat if you need me.
Okay. Thank you. Well, we seem to have enough volunteers to be able to run an interview panel, Gareth, so I don't think there should be an impediment there, should there?
No, that's absolutely fine. As I said, we'll have to invite John. We've got Councillor Horan who's volunteered, and we've got more than enough of independent members who've thrown their hat into the ring, so we can get an interview pool from all of those members. That's fine.
Well, that takes us away from item 6. Item 7. That's down to you, Gareth. Any complaints received since the last meeting?
I'm trying to work out since January. There are 2 current complaints with the Ombudsman. One of which involves a city councillor. There's another complaint that involves a community councillor, which involves issues with the community council clerk. So both of those matters are with the Ombudsman at the moment, and the Ombudsman is looking into them. So they may be investigated. At the moment, I've got no further information. So if and when I hear anything from the Ombudsman, I'll update the committee. So at the moment, there are 2 outstanding complaints that are pending investigation with the Ombudsman.
Okay. That takes us on to the date of the next meeting, according to my agenda, which is on the 15th of April. Now, by that date, Gareth, we would have hopefully had some interviews?
I would hope so. We'll get the advert out as soon as possible. Obviously, it's got to go in the newspaper as well as on the website. So that will take time. We have to put it in 2 local newspapers. So we're suggesting the South Wales Argus and the Western Mail. So as soon as we can get those newspaper adverts published, we'll allow a few weeks for applications. So yeah, hopefully by then we'll have a short list and we can arrange some interviews. All right, and
shall I liaise with Pamela on that to know what's going on? Is that?
Yeah, we'll keep you updated certainly in terms of progress with that. That's fine.
Okay. Now, is there any likely to be any change to the calendars, Gareth, as a result of this, the various things that are happening with the COVID situation?
No, we've got a full program of remote meetings now.
Yeah.
Like I said, the only issue we had with this particular meeting was independent members dialing in, so we couldn't do it as a live event. That's why it's being recorded. But if we can sort that out between now and the next meeting, then the intention would be to broadcast this as a live event, so that the public can actually view this live as they can with other council meetings. But no, the protocol, now we've fully established the technology for delivering these remote meetings. There will be a full program of meetings going forward, including meetings of this committee.
Paul, you got your hand up? And you are muted.
Sorry if I put my hand up, it was sort of almost inadvertent, but just to say, if we've got a full program meetings, that's helpful because I've been wanting to get into the full council meetings as well. It's one of the opportunities we've missed, I think.
Thank you. John?
Yes, I'm wondering why you want to broadcast this meeting live when it is normally broadcast live when we have a standards committee meeting.
Right, just to explain, John, it's part of the council's remote meetings protocol. You're quite right. We only webcast meetings in the council chamber, so that's full council and planning committee, when we used to have face-to-face meetings. But I think with these remote meetings, the council felt that because they were being recorded in a sense anyway, in terms of openness and transparency, the wish was with public meetings that we should broadcast them live on the website. So just in terms of what Mr. Worthington was saying, all council meetings now, you could actually, if you log on the council website, you can actually hear the broadcast live. So there's a link on the council website for council meetings and other meetings, and you will be able to observe them live. But yeah, that's why we've adopted this protocol. I think in terms of transparency with these remote and visual meetings, the view was the public should be allowed to watch them live if they want to, if they haven't got anything better to do. But the option is there, and as standards committee is another one of the council's sort of standard committees, then the same rules apply to standards committee.
I was just asking because it seems it's so much trouble for non-councillors to try and join, and I was just wondering whether you were making a hurdle that needn't be there really, if it's put on the website at a later date as a recording.
Well, if we can't resolve the live events issue, then we'll continue to do what we're doing now, because what we're doing now complies with the regulations. Because what happened was when we suspended all face-to-face meetings, Welsh Government had to make new legislation. It's what the chair alluded to in his introductory remarks about the remote meetings regulations. So what we're doing now has to comply with those regulations for them to be official council meetings. Now, the minimum requirement is what we're doing now, which is to record them and to upload the recording onto the website. But most councils, including Newport, have taken the view that we would rather have a live event so that members of the public can actually listen to and view the proceedings live. So that's why we've taken that view. It's not been a problem with council meetings and councillors dialing in, but there are technology issues in terms of independent members and other people dialing in from outside the council network.
Yeah.
But if we can resolve those difficulties, then we will broadcast this as a live event in future meetings. Unfortunately, we have to do that to comply with the regulations. But like I said, if there is still a problem, the fallback position is what we're doing this evening, which is a Teams event that will be recorded but uploaded later.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question, John. That relates to me asking Gareth as well about the whether the programme was going to change because of the volume of traffic in other areas that I've had activity. As the traffic has built up now on this Zoom and Teams meetings, there's been a shuffling of priorities, but we've always got the situation that we can fall back on into this not a live Teams meeting. Andrew, you've got your hand up?
Yes, Chair. I appreciate we're sort of coming to the end of this now. We've talked about the live broadcast and these meetings. Perhaps we could just acknowledge the work of Pamela and her patience with some of us, including myself, who's supposed to be a regular Teams user, to actually get us to this stage. I know also that Anne's had a little input as well. So perhaps we can acknowledge that, Chair, for both of them and the work they've done. And I'm sure the work that she'll be doing to try and get us into broadcast as we go forward.
Yes, well, I have it down. It's one of my closing remarks, Andrew.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Phil, you have got your hand up?
Yeah, I'd like to come back to Gareth over this continuity of chair. As we've got 2 cases up with the Ombudsman at the moment, what is the procedure, Gareth? Does the Ombudsman come back to you, or do they come back to the chair of the Standards Committee, or both of you? Because obviously Phil is going to stand down now in March, but we won't have another chair till April. So do you envisage any problems there?
The chair isn't involved at all in the process.
Thank you.
Because it's important that Standards Committee members remain impartial, if you like, because in the event that the Ombudsman finds there's a case to answer and he presents a report, Standards Committee will have to consider that report. We'll have to conduct a full hearing. So at this stage, all I'm doing is notifying you sort of confidentially and on an anonymous basis that there are these outstanding complaints. It's the reason I can't go into any detail. It's because you have to remain impartial and objective in case you have to sit in adjudication on these complaints in due course. So the process is that I will be notified if the Ombudsman decides to investigate, and at the end of the day, if he produces a full report, then that will come before the full Standards Committee for consideration. So the chair doesn't get involved at all unless and until there's a final report and it comes to full Standards Committee. So the absence of a chair in the meantime doesn't cause any problem at all.
Right, thank you, Gareth. And the other thing is, can we formally record our thanks to Phil Westwood for his chairing of the committee over the last few years, and wish him well in the future. I'm sure everybody would agree with that.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you. John, your hand is up.
No, I think I've already asked my question. I'll take it down. Sorry.
Your hand is up. Now it's down. It's okay.
Not anymore.
Nobody else wishes to speak? Well, in just closing, I wanted to thank Pamela for the work that she's put in the last month, in particular over the Christmas break, because it's been pretty fractious trying to get this thing organised, but it's done now, and it will stand us in good stead for the future, because we've always got this fallback option that which is useful and allows us to stick to the calendar going forward. So with that, we'll sign off. If there's no one that's got anything else to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Feel free to.
Thank you very much.
Bye.